Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of the First Stars podcast, third season. How my loyal listeners, thank you for your continued support. It's an amazing episode because Bill Oberst Jr. boards the mothership to discuss Adversary and a stranger in the woods. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hi, Mr. Oberst. Thank you so much for coming to the First Stars podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me back, man.
So, my pleasure. Like I said, we had a great conversation the last time, so thank you so much for coming back on.
Oh, you're welcome, but you got to call me Bill.
Bill. Sorry, I'll try to get used to that. I always say Mister. I'll have to get used to saying the first name.
And you know what? That's extremely kind and very professional. I shouldn't say, I should let people do it and not say call me Bill, but I just always like to get on a first name basis.
Oh no, it's always appreciated. So, I always start off with a question of inspiration. So, who inspired your love for acting, and who are your earliest influences?
Who inspired my love for? Well, let me ask you first, and then I'll answer like tit for tat. Who inspired you to want to do the podcast?
In this particular case, I think it was myself. I always wanted to talk to creative people, especially comic book people and also actors. And I actually didn't know this was even a thing until I bumped into this podcast when I was doing some comic books. I thought to myself, they're doing well, and they let me do their show for a little while. And then I thought, I want to do my own show, and here I am.
Do you enjoy it?
I must admit, I really do enjoy it. It's my release from a long work day. So at the end of a long work day, I can come on, talk to some creative people, and for a little while, have a really good, deep conversation about the arts. And to me, that's the best.
That's the way creativity is for me. There's a director. I'll answer your question, but you bring a mind. There's a director named Adrian Corona that I'm getting ready to work with again this year. I've done two movies with him, Dis, and oh, what the heck was the other one that I did with Adrian? I'll think of it in a minute. But Adrian is a very intense director, and he said there are two kinds of creatives. There are people who do it to get attention, and there are people who do it to relieve tension.
Hmm.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. Like you can either do it because you want to say, "Hey, look at me," or you can do it because you say, "I just have to do this. I have to do it." So I've tried to evolve to be the second type. But who inspired me to be an actor? I became an actor out of necessity for it, like you, for myself, because I was a lonely boy and
Hmm.
really picked on a lot. And performing was a way for me to, sort of fit in and have my own niche. But I knew that I wanted to do this really for a career when I saw an old silent movie actor named Lon Chaney.
Hmm.
So, I came along after the silence, obviously, but in my day, there was no VCR and there was no internet. So there's no way to see these old movies that you heard about. So I used to read Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. And Forrest J. Ackerman, the editor there, he would write about these movies that these guys named Karloff and Lugosi and Cheney had done back in the 20s, 30s, 40s. And I had no way to ever see them. So one Halloween, the local Lions Club or Rotary Club or something announced that they were showing scary movies, silent movies. And they had them in the old, sort of dilapidated headquarters. And I guess they charged a couple bucks. And I begged my grandmother to take me. So she did. And it was just like concrete block room. And they were projected onto a bed sheet. And there was a woman there playing piano, which she just played whatever song she knew, didn't have much to do with the movies. So it was far from an ideal setting, but they showed Nosferatu
Hmm.
and 1923, and they showed Phantom of the Opera that night, 1925. And both of those movies, Jeff, I'd never seen anything like that.
Hmm.
And they absolutely blew me away. And particularly when I saw Cheney in the unmasking scene, something just hit me inside. And I said, I want to do that. I didn't even know what that was, just that I want to do that. And now that I'm older, I think I realized that Chaney as the Phantom, he had this mix of like hurt, anger, um, vulnerability, and malevolence together. And that just hit something right in the center of me, because I came to believe that the people who picked on me and were mean to me when I was, this
Mm.
lonely boy, were scared and lonely and angry as something else in their life, which they were projecting onto me. So I grew to love to play those kind of characters. I'm sorry that's such a long answer, but it's the truth.
No, it's a fantastic answer. So, is it beyond the characters of Nosferatu and Phantom of the Opera that you were speaking of, and because of the hurt you saw in the one who plays the Phantom? What is about the silent films beyond that that attracted your interest the most?
About, you said silent films?
Yeah.
Well, because it feels like being inside yourself. It feels like when you wake up at 3 a.m., you don't need words. Last night, I had a absolutely horrifying dream, which just woke me up. It was terrible, Jeff, just terrible.
Mm,
And I didn't say, oh, what a terrible dream. I just felt my heart pound.
mm,
And that's the way silent movies are. If you can get past the fact that, they are technically imperfect and people don't perform like we would perform today, and get all that out of your mind, but just live in the fact that these are human beings having really strong emotions with no words.
mm,
And that's the best, man. I mean, like, when you're in love, or when you're with a close friend, when you're with your mother, you don't really need words. It's just feeling the emotion. And that's what I like. So even now, I try to have my lines cut. I always lobby to have the lines cut. If I get a script and there's like paragraphs and paragraphs,
mm.
I'm always like, oh, no, no, no. Please let me say less. And so when I get on set, I will try to lobby the director to say, do you think we could cut this down? And sometimes they'll let you do it. If you're lucky, they'll cut a whole paragraph and you can just say with a look and a couple of words. That's the best.
Now, from an acting standpoint, because, like I said, you're talking about expression over the dialogue.
Yeah.
How, when you do have things cut, how have you learned to speak without speaking? Then to speak fully in expression.
Well, you can tell the truth with your eyes, even if your eyes don't lie, right? So camera is about nothing but eyes. Once I learned that, I mean, I did stage for 15 years before I did this, and I've been doing this longer than I did stage now. But in stage, it's your whole body, and it's really about lie. And you have moments of truth, but you're creating this big illusion. But in film, it's just the naked truth. It's your eyes. So that's what I like about it, is you are forced to tell the truth. And you're not relying on any artifice of voice or pauses. You're just feeling it with your eyes. But you don't, like, if the script says, okay, Jeff, in this scene you're angry, the worst thing to do is to think to yourself, I'm angry, because then you're going to overdo it.
Mm,
So the way to do it, and a really good casting director taught me this, there's something called redirect, or they used to be back when auditions were in
mm,
person. Most of them are virtual now. It's a big loss. But when you actually had to go to the audition room and go in, they would do what's called a redirect, and you do it your way, and then they'd say, well, do it this way. And they may not want it that way. They just want to see if you can do it another way.
mm,
So on redirect, the direction was something like be sad or be angry or something like that. And she liked me, and I was doing too much. And she said, look, she said, have you ever tried on a redirect? Just think the word. That's it. So if the scene calls for you to be angry, all you have to do is put the word anger, see it on the blackboard
mm.
of your mind, nothing else. Don't think about things that make you angry. Don't think, oh, my boy, I'm really angry. Just the word anger, and your brain does the rest. Just like when you imagine throwing a baseball, the same muscles twitch as when you really throw a baseball. Your body and your mind they've got a lot to give if you let them and don't try to force them. So Yeah, that's kind of a weird answer, but it's about letting your mind and your body go and telling the truth. And it's best when you don't have words.
So, being in a position where, once again, cutting down dialogue in a film or a play or television show, when are you deciding which words then to keep? What job then is the words that are not or need to be there where expression isn't doing
The exposition. Always it's the exposition. Jesus, Lord, I hate exposition. I
it?
hate it. I hate exposition. You never do it in real life. You never say, "Hey, remember that time we went on the camping trip to the Sierra?" You don't say that. You just make some internal reference. Tomorrow morning, I got a standing breakfast every Saturday morning. Me and my best friend from years and years and years ago, way back high school, we have breakfast. Well, if anybody else were listening, they wouldn't understand half of what we're saying because we're just making references to things that happened, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the way dialogue should feel. Like I'm really in the minority on this, Jeff, but I think that it's better to plunk an audience down in the middle of a conversation and let them figure out
Mm,
what's going on. Don't tell them what it is because they instantly will become bored and say, "Oh, I know what this is."
gotcha.
Instead, let them kind of figure out what is this? What relation do these two people have? What are they talking about?
Now, I think I saw a post of yours on Facebook from September that you were in a one-person play called Adversary. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's a new solo show. I've done solo shows throughout, on and off, throughout the last 20 years of doing this. And this is the new one, and it's about Satan. And I've just started to tour it around. Yeah,
Now, did you write this as well? I know you're the star because obviously one man show. Is this something you wrote as well? Did you have someone who
I
helped you
did.
write it?
Yeah, I put it together. I took a lot of the biblical references about Satan, and then I wove them in with three fictional, like short story depictions of Satan, and mixed them in there. I got Robert Louis Stevenson, Dostoevsky, some John Milton, Paradise Lost.
Mm,
So I wanted to give a picture, like within an hour, of all the different ways that people have imagined this figure of the devil. As a real thing, as a trickster, as a figment of the imagination, as an excuse, all of those things together. And yeah, so that's what it is.
So, taking your philosophy of minimalizing the dialogue, how did you approach writing the adversary from that perspective to minimize the dialogue and focus more on your expression?
Wow, you know what? Physician, heal thyself. Because here I am talking about no dialogue, but I'm on stage for 50 minutes. I can't just like say, look at them,
Yeah.
but I find my moments. What I did was first write it so that it was really interesting to me. And then I started putting some movement with it. And I ended up cutting a lot of the words when I put movement in because I found, okay,
Mm,
movement can help this. It was too packed with words before. I think it's kind of sparse now, but I mean, these quotes about Satan, like for instance, here's one. Um, it's from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, 1000 BCE. I am Set. I am he who causes your storms and your tempest. I am he who rides round the horizon of heaven with a veiled heart.
mm,
I am your brother.
mm.
I mean, that's great stuff.
Yeah.
But the great work I have to do when I'm on stage, it's always hard for me to slow the hell down.
Mm,
Slow down because I get so excited about it, and it takes so yeah, I have to pace it. When you're in the audience, it takes time. When you're on film, you can just blah, 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 blah.
mm.
But what
So,
I want again is to have this relationship with the audience so that I can stop talking for a minute and look at them, and they're going to be cool with it and not think I've forgotten my words, and I'm going to be cool with it. And I just did this thing for only like the third time for an audience, and we had those moments. It was pretty cool.
So when you're thinking about once again performing, you're obviously you're playing the devil. Um, how the thing with the creating character of the devil is that he's obviously supposed to be the ultimate evil. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
from multiple different perspectives, from a religious views on it, he would that's who he's supposed to represent as the adversary. But at the same time, you still got to play him as a living thing, a living being. Is it hard to think to perform a character like this without going directly to he's not just evil, he has to give him nuance. At the same time, you can't make it too human because he's clearly not.
It is hard, but it's made easier for me because I've been doing these type of roles for so long. I learn what works and what doesn't work. What doesn't work is to try to play evil. That never works.
Hmm,
It's like if you have to cry in a scene, the very best thing is to try not to cry.
hmm,
Or if you're drunk, play a person who's trying not to appear drunk.
hmm,
Always go the opposite way. So if my take on Satan is he's charming, very seductive, and as you peel away the layers, you learn that he's really pissed off.
hmm,
Because if somebody's going to be worshipped and venerated and listened to, his view is, why not me? You know, why not me? What do you got that I don't have? Why not me? And that's the base of his evil. It comes from jealousy. Why not me? And that's something I can relate to, and I guess all humans can.
hmm. Now, when you think about once again looking at the devil from different religious viewpoints, there's a Old Testament version of him as just as originally I did is that he's an adversary, almost like a litigator against God
You're right.
from humanity. Then there's the Christian version where he is a creation of God and thus someone who is trying to work against God's creation as Lucifer as and an angel. Which version
Yes.
of the devil is more interesting to explore, and which one do you think you explore the most?
I have both of them in the show. I have him even play with the idea of, this general idea that he's supposed to be the enemy of God. I don't think that he would ever present himself in that way. But I think the more interesting take is that, hey, I'm a part of creation too. In fact, the third act of the show, which I wrote myself, it's called Your 3 a.m. Therapist. And it's the shit that you hear in the middle of the night that tells you that essentially you're everything. And what you want is what should be. And anything that you want and anything that you feel is valid and good and right. And to hell with anybody else.
Mm.
That's the stuff. That's the stuff. But what he's saying is, you're a part of creation. You're why you got to subjugate yourself, as he says. Why you got to be the wriggle worm who every time it wriggles, which is what it does naturally,
Mm.
gets lashed and told, "Bad worm, don't wriggle." That's really seductive because I hear that and I'm like, "Yeah, I want to wriggle." So it's like the lack of. It's just it's unfastening anything that keeps you restrained. It's total lack of self restraint, which is a great way to become evil. But it feels so natural. It's like, yeah, why I got to hold myself back?
I would wonder, is it easier to play evil and not hold yourself back than trying to play someone who's 100% good and doesn't have to hold themselves back?
Oh, I hate 100% good. I don't believe it
Okay.
in real life or in scripts. I read a script recently where there's a character who's like, I'm like, he's too good. This person is too good. That not me. They didn't want me to play it. There's another character in there. I was like, it's too good. You gotta muddy it up, mess it up a little. Like a really good makeup artist told me once, she did beauty makeup, and she said, when I do a perfect makeup, like a perfect beauty makeup, I go back in and just dip a sponge in alcohol, and I just like give it a couple of wipes, because there's got to be a little imperfection where the
Mm,
mind doesn't believe it, the eye won't accept it.
mm. That's
And
that's
I believe
fantastic.
that's true.
It's kind of interesting. I've been working on a mini series because I write indie comic books on the side.
Yeah,
And when I comic book I've been working on, I've written 5 issues of it, but only the first two are out. Called Malik Reigning Devil, which is about a angel that is revolting against God, sort of like Lucifer did. Uh,
really.
yeah, it's really kind of interesting. And I could go into detail, but basically what happened is, God sent this angel to kill the devil, and the rule was when you kill a devil, you become the devil. So
Oh man,
yeah.
that's good.
Oh, thank you. And the thing is, once the angel realizes that's what happens, he wonders, why would God put me in this situation where now I'm stuck in hell? What did I do to
Yes,
deserve this? And then revolts against it.
yes,
So I'm thinking about a character like the devil. When you have a character that exists like the devil, and you accept that there's a God in this world because you have the devil, it has to be a God. What is that position that put God in that he then would have created
well,
the devil?
you just hit on something that's really been on my mind, because I've been reading about saints lately. I just read Kostinkakis, Nico Kostinkakis. I always mispronounce his last name. He wrote Last Temptation of Christ. He also wrote a book about St. Francis, which somebody recommended to me, and I read it. Oh my God, Jeff. Like, Francis is literally eaten up by God.
Mm,
He does become holy. He does actually, heal, and he receives the stigmata, but it destroys him. It
mm,
absolutely destroys his life. By the end of it, he's just wasted. He's a shell. And
mm.
so, and I've read also another novel about a saint by Frederick Buechner called Godric, and it's the same thing. It's like there's a long tradition of holiness destroying all the things that we think life is about, like beauty
Mm.
and perfect health, being fat and happy.
Yeah,
So I wonder if it's like we think, oh, God only wants good things for me.
yeah.
God only wants me to be happy, and he wants me to be here in this comfortable house. I don't know, man.
Well,
I don't know. Like, if you really, really are trying to pursue holiness, especially if you're an angel, he may well ask you to do shit that you might say, I don't want to do this.
yeah.
And so then you got to either say, if if you're dealing with the supreme authority of all, you've either got to do it, or you've got to say no,
Mm.
and you become the devil.
See, I think that's a fascinating question. It's like I always go back to, I think it's sort of Joe where he keeps being punished, not punished, but keeps being put in horrible situation and see if he would lose faith at some point. And the idea is that even with all the things that was done to him, he hasn't lost faith. And that's supposed to be a proof of the greatness of faith in God and everything else. I'm thinking to myself, I think the story doesn't quite say what they think it says. It seems like, why would God be such a jerk to someone who is caring? It makes you wonder, like, take something like
Oh,
Lucifer,
yeah, and and
who,
and then you've got these just this really troubling stories, like Abraham being told, you know, take the son that I promised you, who you love, and sacrifice him.
yep,
Like, what? And so when you read that story, he's like, you're like, no, no. And he's like, yeah. So in the morning, he took his son and he took two slaves and he got the fire. And I'm like, no, don't do this. I don't know. It's just like,
well, it, well, in the comic book, one of the issues I wrote of Malik, it's called Malik Bending Devil. The character Malik, he's debating. There's a soul in hell who's being tortured by hell because that's what happens to souls, obviously.
yes,
And Malik is talking to him not directly because he's kind of having an open monologue to the soul, and he's trying to prove his how he is more worthy of being a ruler than God is. His argument is God created you as this flawed being. How can you then be punished for the flaw it created in you? And once again, the devil
ex-
has the same problem.
exactly. There's a lot of that, and probably like 85% of my adversary show is variations of that. Of the argument is, this is how you were created, and everything in nature has a created nature. the way that it was meant to be. This is the way you're meant to be. And in this case, of course, it's spiteful, petty,
Hmm.
all the things that humans are, cruel. But
Mm.
these are your flaws. Then they're not flaws because God gave them to you. That's the argument.
And
It's very interesting.
yeah, I think that's a fascinating argument. And so if the devil, you're the character you created for the devil, moves in that way, how does it view its existence? Is it then a natural product because God created it to be that way, or does it really feel like it's rebelling against God? And to kind of go a little bit further into that, is it rebelling if God created it to rebel?
I don't think that's possible. I mean, it's like Judas. I used to think when I was in Sunday school, and I would teach about Judas and say, well, Judas is, he has the prime place in hell because because of what he did, because he betrayed Christ. Well, he was born to do that. We were also taught
Hmm.
that from the beginning he was, so I'm like, damn, he's doomed to do that from the beginning, and he's damned for doing it.
Hmm.
So there's all these kind of contradictions. In general, I am a Christian, and I do believe in God, and I believe that God is a merciful and loving God. But I believe also that there's a terrible awesomeness, not awesomeness in the way that we use the word, like
Hmm.
he's awesome, but there's a terrible awesomeness that surrounds the mystery of what we call God. And you have to be careful if you get really close because not everything is peaches and cream. I mean, you're talking about like the mysteries of the universe, the mysteries of everything that is. There's some darkness there.
Is the character in your play, I'm only want to say a tragic hero, but at very least a tragic character, or is it because it's intentionally and knowingly doing what it's doing? It's not tragic, it's just evil or bad.
Tragic. He
Tragic?
wants you to he wants you to believe that he's tragic and that you also are tragic. And the way not to be tragic is just to be the monster you are. He goes through the litany of mankind. This is what mankind is and what mankind has always been. Everybody is, we look at what's happening in the Middle East and we're like, oh my God, this is nothing new.
Mm.
This is what he would say, this is what you are. And what you're looking at now is what you are. So accept what you are because you and your species will never change. And you damn well better try to find your place within what is instead of wishing that it were not so. And that's a strong argument. I mean, it leads to very bad things, I think, but it's a strong argument.
Now, because the devil in your play, it's the primary character. How do you or you did you write it? Because once again, it can be a very alluring first point of view, because especially from the main character. But once again, you still have to present him as the average. So how did you kind of walk that line between giving him a perspective that is on the one hand, I don't say alluring, but at very least attractive to an audience because they want to listen to
Mm-hmm.
it, at the same time, keeping him as clear that this is the bad guy, as it were. And
I mix it up with stories from the New Testament of Jesus being tempted in the wilderness and casting out demons, and to put it sort of in a historical framework. One, two, there are three different writers: Dostoevsky, Robert Louis Stevenson, and me, all with three sort of different takes to the different variations. But ultimately, I really don't want it to be clearly defined as to what he is.
mm,
Again, like it's being dropped down in the middle of a movie. I want people to leave thinking, I kind of like this guy. Should I like this guy? I like this guy. Should I like him? Like that.
now, another aspect of acting, obviously, because once I do a lot of actor interviews, which is a pleasure of mine. Um, Acting, they always say is acting is reacting. You're reacting to another actor. As a solo actor, there's no one to react again. So how are you? performing without having the reaction?
The audience becomes your scene partner. You are, if you're on stage alone, every little nuance, every shift in the seat from them, even the shuffling of feet, the coughing, um, a laugh where you didn't expect it, all those things. You have to be really, really open to it
Hmm.
and change your pace, because it's like being on a blind date that you'll never be on ever again, because particular that audience will never exist again.
Hmm.
And you can't just do the same shit you do on every date and think, hey, I got this. You've got to be seductive and kind of feel them. That's a very perceptive question.
Oh, thank you. Um, Going kind of off that a little bit, the other thing is when you're performing in a play with a lot of different actors, part of the distraction for the actor from the audience is the other actors and what's going on, what they're doing, what you're hearing, and everything else. But as you say, since it's just you and just the audience is what you're reacting to, and you are picking up on all those little issues, maybe a cough or a shuffle or a moment where you might think you might not have them. How distracting does that get, or disruptive does that get to your performance if you are that aware of the audience reaction to you?
It's horrifying the first like 1,000 solo shows you do, but I've been doing solo shows 25 years. And once you've done several thousand, which I have, of different characters, you get a little dialogue running in your head, and it's like danger, Will Robinson, danger. Do you've gone too far. Back off. Step to the left. Move a little into the light. Back off. Slow down. Speed up. You literally have like a track running in your mind, like a director telling you what to do.
Mm,
Which I guess it's your intuition. Maybe like if you play basketball, it would be the same thing. Like it's just you're getting course corrections as you go because you've done it so many times that you know when it's going to work and when it's not. What I always try to do is to leave the audience like lightly kissed, but never like full on French.
can you go into more detail on that?
Oh yeah, it's just like a little, like just a peck on the cheek, and then it's like night.
Awesome. So when you're for play the adversary, are you touring? Is this in one like basically one location or state? Is it, or do you travel the country?
No, I'm touring with it. I've put it out to churches, to colleges, to small theaters. Um, it's difficult to explain to people what it is. It's a literary show, and so it's kind of a hard sell in that way, because I'm like, hey, I've got Dostoevsky and John Milton in this, and they're like, this is going to be boring. I'm like, no, man, literature is great.
Mm.
Um, I do a tour with the Christmas Carol every year with Dickens' original text.
Oh
I
wow.
play all the characters, and it's fantastic, and it's great to see how people get into, once they forget we don't talk like this anymore,
Mm.
and they just get into it because the emotion's the same. I love ancient languages and old text. I put some Aramaic and some Greek and some Latin in Adversary too, and I don't translate it. I just say the stuff, and because I like the funky feel of like
Mm.
different languages and different words. It keeps it interesting. It reminds us that everybody doesn't speak or think the way we did.
Mm. It kind of reminds me of things when I think about that a little bit of like listening to instrumental music where you don't know the words, but just the rhythm and the sound of it tells you
Yeah,
needs to share. And even if you understand the language, especially language I took a little while in college, it's still the sound of the language kind of tells what it's saying, defines you.
that's yeah, that's exactly right. Like I have let's see, the Greek response when Satan says, I'll give you all of this if you bow down. And if you literally, it's if falling, you should worship before me. And the response is, Hupago Satana Kurianha Theon su Prasconesius Kayata Mano Latrua. Get behind me, Satan. Lord your God, your master, you shall worship, and before him alone you shall fall.
Mm.
But you can get the feel by the rhythm of it. I do a podcast called Gothic Good Night,
Yeah.
and it's bedtime stories. I need to do some more episodes, but I've tried to pace it and structure it so that just the lulling of the voice and the pacing will lull you down into sleep.
I remember the last interview we had. I think we centered around your Gothic, and I remember it being a fantastic show.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to do some more episodes. They're just so labored. They take like a week to do an episode
Hmm.
because I've got to pick the story, do the story, and then edit it, and then figure out what the library keeper's going to say. Podcasts are a lot of work, aren't they?
Yeah, my guess is that when I thought to myself how long it takes to do a podcast from beginning to I mean prep to release and promoting, I averaged it out to about 4 hours of work.
Yeah, people don't realize it. I've done audiobooks too for Audible, and that's a shitload of work.
Hmm.
It's like it's about 4 hours for every finished hour of
Yeah.
audio. It takes about 4 hours to produce it and cut it and edit out the breaths and all this stuff. All this stuff that we have now that we take for granted. Yeah, it takes a lot of work to create.
Hmm. One thing I was wondering about the Adversary show because I live in Rhode Island. Is does it Are you ever heading to that neck of the woods to
I'd
perform?
love to, like, because it's a small show and I don't have like a big agent or anything promoting it. So if anybody's interested in me doing it, just holler at me and send me an email and we'll see if we can get going. If I did it, like Rhode Island, other side of the country, I'd like try to get a group of colleges or churches or something, to do
Hmm.
it, get a little tour going. That's
Well,
where I've done my other shows is get one like a library or whatever it is, and then get other ones to go with it.
so like I said, I'm fascinated by the concept of it and the show that you're doing. I obviously, um, you know, where you live, location is because obviously Rhode Island versus I think you're California perhaps then.
Yeah, Los
Um,
Angeles.
is it available on YouTube? Is there ways for someone to watch it who's not in the vicinity?
I did it at the Ray Bradbury Center in Purdue University, Indianapolis, and I'm just editing that performance, and I think I'll put the whole thing online. It's good enough. I mean, I don't mean that I'm good. I mean that the quality of it is good enough. So yeah, I probably will put it online because people are like, oh, you put it online, people steal it. I'm like, who wants to steal my literary show about Satan? you know, if they want it, they can do it better than me. They can have it.
Well, I
But
was gonna say,
I'll tell your listeners that the website for it is adversaryshow.com.
I mean, even if the idea that they'll steal it, my thought is you can watch something on YouTube, but there's a difference between watching something on YouTube and seeing it live. And live does have a different feel, regardless of how well you know the play on YouTube.
You know what? That is so true. I got a buddy who's anytime I call this guy, he's an actor, but if he's not working, what are you doing? Watching YouTube, watching YouTube. That's all he does is watch. I'm like, life is not YouTube. But he said no, but it's a good simulation. But I don't think so. Life is better.
No, I would say YouTube is a very specific view of reality.
Yeah. But like everything's got to be exciting on YouTube. You're like, hey, today we're going to show you how to use this new screwdriver and stick it into an orange. And then, this like, blah, 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 and the things are cutting. Life is not like that.
No.
In real life, you might be like, what are you doing with that screwdriver? I'm going to stick it in this orange. Okay, you were really messed up. That's better. But it's a boring video.
Well, like you said, that I mean, there's definitely aspects like that. There's a sometimes I wonder on a podcast, because when I do my show is like, is it big enough for people to view it? But I think if it's smart enough, it's going to be big enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the audience is going to be a specific type of audience that's going to watch it, but I think I'd rather have an audience that I'm proud of and that watches my show than try to do something to just gain the view.
Well, you treat your audience like they're intelligent, which I really appreciate, Jeff,
Oh, thank you.
because I don't want to be sold to,
Mm.
you know, you don't have to hustle me. Like you know what I mean? Like the tone of a lot of videos is they're hustling you.
Mm.
Do this life hack, and never have diarrhea. I'm like, come on, man. Drop that tone of voice. Quit trying to sell me. Just talk to me. I get emails that are obviously marketing emails. They want you to do something. But I'm like, guys, you're trying too hard and you're just turning me off. I'm going to delete this. Whereas if you had just been a real person, maybe I would have done it.
Mm.
Just be
I,
real, you know?
I agree with that 100%. I think I would rather have a conversation like we are having than trying to. 'Cause I watch I do watch other interviews and from other podcasters out there because you got to do your research and get a sense of what's out there. And I had to train myself a little bit too. And you can kind of tell which ones are trying to, the I would say maybe the surface level. Oh, so, who's your favorite guy to play with, had been in a movie with, and they give the information. It's like, okay, they throw out some other like very like vacuous kind of questions just to try to get a reaction out of them. I'm like, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, what was the goal of all that?
Well, it's like the whoredom of celebrity,
Hmm.
that is in our culture. It's really just, it's not healthy.
Hmm.
I'm really sorry that acting ever became a celebrity occupation. It
Hmm.
really sucks because if you tell people what you do, oh, they immediately they light up. What have you been in that I might have seen?
Yep.
Because they want you to be in something that they can say, who have you worked with? Who do you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, stop the celebrity whoring. Just
Well,
these are just people. We're all just people. If you're interested in what I do, or I'm interested in what you do for a living, that's cool. But I'm not going to say like, "Ooh, Jeff, who have you interviewed?" As if that is your worth.
it's funny. I teach at a middle school. I'm a special ed teacher at a middle school in Rhode Island. And and I don't publicize it too much, but I do mention it from time to time. It's been mentioned that I do a podcast and do interviews, and the kids are like, "Who did you interview so and so that I know?" It's like,
Uh huh.
"Oh no, I didn't interview that person." Like, oh, they're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Oh,
I was like,
yeah. And then there's the disappointment. Like, oh,
"Yeah, it's like it's like it's not devalued just because you don't know the person. If that person is someone of who did something of
well,
value."
and there you go. I mean, like in my business on movies, it's the who's in it is what kills movies, kills the indie movies. You can
Hmm.
do a great, really, really interesting movie. And they're like, there's this movie, you have got to see it. It's about, who's in it. Blah, 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 blah. Never heard of them. As if the fact that you've never heard of them is some indication of the wealth that they're worth. Because, of course, if they were worthy, you would have heard of them.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
So, I mean, you do so many movies. You're very prolific. Some of these are indie films. Are you thinking about when you're choosing a part or choosing to be in a particular film that this is a film that by lending my name to, can get more people to see because it deserves to be seen? Are you thinking of this is something I'll be able to explore as an actor? There's something a different facet of my performance. What is the criteria for you to choose which film you're going to be in?
The second, if it's a character that's in some way interesting or personal relationships decide a lot of times, like if the director's really nice and you feel a good vibe and you have a good relationship with them, that's oftentimes a deciding factor.
Now, having once again being very well known, especially in the horror genre, is there a responsibility and a pressure because now by adding your name to the project, you do give it that legitimacy in the eyes of a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't talk about
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but the thing is, like, if you become somewhat successful at doing this, then and you're working for an indie film, then sometimes you get hired for like, just the cameo role,
it. Yeah.
or they call it the bookend, where you're at the beginning and you get killed at the end. And then you're like, well, am I going to piss people off? Because they'll say, oh, well, Jeff's in the movie. But then I'm like, Jeff was only in the movie for 5 minutes.
Mm, yeah. It,
Um,
it kind of remind. I mean, we learned later why it was happening, but like Bruce Willis was doing a lot of those movies when he knew he was getting sick for obvious
yeah.
reasons, because obviously for financial reasons, he wanted to help his family. But that was those. I think what a lot of people are familiar now with those movies because of what those movies that what he was in, where it was just kind of like I'm in this movie, put my name on the so they could put my name on the cover, but it wasn't exactly a movie of Bruce Willis, his movie.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's rarely a movie of the person that you know. It's, oh, they're in it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's what gets people to see movies. So if I have any kind of a name in the horror genre, if I don't know if I do, but if I do, then that's sometimes why people are hiring me is because they think that, by doing that, someone will say, "Oh, I know that name,"
Mm.
within the horror genre. It's, my dad says, how the hell does anybody know who you are? I never see any of your movies. I'm like, Daddy, you don't watch horror movies. You don't watch the blood and gore and the stuff that I do. So you wouldn't know. And so, but it's inconceivable to him that anyone would know because he doesn't understand it's kind of a niche world.
Mm. Now, a film that's coming out, I think is it May or August, called A Stranger in the Woods.
Yeah.
Is that May or August that one's coming out?
I don't know. You know more than I do. I saw the trailer.
Yeah,
We shot that in Hungary last fall.
there was two because there's two films I was looking at that you were in recently, and one of them I think was August, one was May. I think Stranger in the Woods I think is the one in May, and I think the other one I was looking at was one's that Killcraft, what I think is August, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
both of those are going to be good. One is Joseph Calais, a Hungarian director, and one is Mark Savage, who I dearly love. I've done 3 movies with Mark.
Now, I think one interesting thing about, at least from my philosophy of horror movies, is that every horror movie is successful because it reflects a primal fear of individuals.
Yes,
And in Stranger of the Woods, even though the movie has not come out, so I've not been able to watch the movie yet. My understanding is that the horror aspect of this, or the primal fear it's tapping into, is the fear of strangers.
yeah,
Uh,
that's exactly right. A woman comes. It's all shot from her POV, from her point of view. So it's not found footage, but it's point of view footage. She's a filmmaker, and she's come to interview this weird guy who lives alone in a cabin in the woods.
Now, from we're talking about the fear of the other, fear of people. There's
Yes,
obviously a sense where your character Victor is representative because was gonna have not seen it. My guess is that Victor is the one that is going to be the antagonist of the story. So he
yeah,
represents the stranger, the other. However, Victor being someone who's a recluse, his other though his primal fear would be this documentarians coming to him because he's not used to being outside the society. So which aspect of that do you think is representing that primal fear of the other or the outsider?
that's pretty interesting. The second viewpoint is really interesting. I wish I'd talked to you before I shot it. I hope I put some of that. I hope I put some of that in there. Um, on the surface, yeah, it's that the primal fear is the fear of what's going on with this weird guy. Um, but there is a scene where she finds him doing something really weird and frightening in the woods, and he becomes like a child. Like she's trying to lead him back to the house, and he doesn't want to go. So it's almost like she's seen too much of his world, and he's afraid of her now. And yeah, it's that kind of dance.
So being that once again not knowing a lot about Victor, he obviously chooses to remove himself from society. And knowing what you know about Victor, is he correct to do so? Is he right to have separated himself out, or was that his tragic mistake that he made that decision? And whatever happens to him after was because of that seclusion.
Again, a question I had not thought of. My initial response was to quickly say, hell yeah, he should have separated himself from society because of what he is. But yeah, maybe those choices to isolate ourselves can be self-fulfilling prophecies and make us more of those. That's a very, very interesting. That's really interesting.
Oh, thank you. um, how much of his backstory were you given prior to performing the role of Victor?
Very little. Joseph Kalia is a to me, like a quintessential European director. He doesn't give you much, particularly Eastern European director, in my experience. He doesn't give you much. Not big on like, here's the backstory, Jeff, and here's why your character does. It's just this kind of ambiguous dialogue. It's all about the camera setup, the lighting, the angle, and the feel of the scene.
Hmm.
So you don't really have the answers. You have to kind of fill them in. And when I'm doing that kind of work, I like to let it be nebulous, even in my own mind,
Hmm.
as to what's going on. And so for that reason, you can be criticized because people will say, I watched this movie and I didn't understand what the hell is going on. But really, I think the filmmaker in that case didn't want you to understand. They just wanted you to feel.
Hmm.
But we're, particularly in Western society, we're very into, I need to know.
Yep.
And a lot of European directors are more into, I need you to feel, not know.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about because of the documentarians, is from going back because my background, before I became a teacher, I was in anthropology, and I did work with primatology, work with apes and monkeys and whatnot. And there's a saying about for researchers that what you observe, you also change. How
Yes, the attention you bring to a thing, absolutely, yes, changes the thing.
so be, how is things impacted by having the documentarians intrude upon his world?
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. And that's the question for us because now we're all documentarians and curators of our own lives.
Mm,
And so we're all presenting these documentaries of our life, which are not really our lives. They're us looking at ourselves, presenting an image of ourselves. It's like mirrors upon mirrors upon mirrors.
mm,
That's why I don't think online life has been really good for us because it just encourages you to create, curated, documented versions of your life.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't think it's healthy.
So for these documentarians, is their interest in Victor educational or is it for exploitive reasons?
It's educational just to show her skills. She's like a student. She's not a student filmmaker, but it's like a student filmmaker saying, I don't really care about you. I just want to, show what I can do.
Hmm.
So that's the way it starts off. She's just completing a project,
Ah,
but yeah. And he's a liar, or he seems to be a liar, but he's very charming, and it's hard to tell when he's lying. It's some of the hallmarks of my favorite types of characters to play.
so and also you said it's the whole thing's from the documentarian's point of view.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's all her footage.
So if it's her point of view, how does that also impact what we're seeing because we're seeing it through her lens?
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, you're seeing it through her eyes, and in the truth of the movie, she had to create this. Somebody had to take this footage and edit it
Hmm.
and put it in some shape, and thus change it and shape it. It's all very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a fascinating concept from both a writer perspective, actor, and an actor perspective, because Victor that we see, it's not really Victor; it's an edited perspective of who Victor is.
And it's who Victor is presenting himself to be for Sophie, the girl.
Right.
He's performing from the get go, and at the end, there's a line he actually says, um, "Long have I loved the lens."
Mm, that's cool.
So yeah, and you maybe something just popped into my head that relates to what you were talking about before about we're all documentarians. One of the weirdest phenomenon I think in our society is videos of people filming their reactions to things.
Oh, yep, 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 yep.
Like, I'm going to listen to this song and show you my reaction, but it's not your reaction to the song. It's what you think a film of your reaction to the song should look like.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
really weird thing to watch someone doing these facial contortions and going, "Oh my god." And I'm like, it's a performance within a performance. It's very strange.
And like I said, is any of it at all genuine?
I don't think so. No, and I mean, I'm going to be a real curmudgeon here and get down on, when people propose and they have the videos they put up.
Yeah.
Well, you had to plan this out. Somebody's got to plan the camera angle, and somebody's holding it. If you're down on your knee and you're offering the ring to your sweetie, somebody's holding the camera, and it's like it's all too performative.
Right. Oh, I agree. We obviously live in a world. It's kind of funny. Like, I really do think it's ironic the term reality TV because it's the least real thing possible.
It's not at all. I got a good buddy in LA who makes a bukus of money editing reality. He's done all the big shows. And he says what it's about is creating a dramatic arc. And he goes through hours and hours and hours and hours of footage. Sometimes they have to go back and get other footage to match until he can actually find something that people would find interesting, which is proof that real life is boring.
Well, I think I can't. Was it a year ago, 2 years ago, when Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook and I think it was his wife decided to create or show that they created like this virtual thing where you'd see like his avatars traveling the world or something.
That's so
And,
stupid.
yeah, did you see the thing that they did on that? It was I think made like the morning news or something. It was like they made a big deal about like the next big Facebook thing when they turned to Meta, and the whole idea was that you could create a cartoon version of yourself in different environments, and thus that somehow you in that environment. I was like, no.
Why would you, Jeff? Why would you do that? Why do we want cartoon versions of ourselves? Aren't we cartoonish enough?
I agree 100%. It's funny, but I think there's part of me, little part of my brain too was thinking we're heading that direction because I like, for instance, my wife, um, likes watching those shows where people are eating on like YouTube, so you can kind of like experience what they're trying to eat. But I was like, I feel like we're trying to get to that point where everything is so lived vicariously through everybody but yourself.
So you mean like when I eat, I need to watch someone eating the same thing?
It's not. It's funny thing. It's not even that when you're. It's like literally just watching other people eat different things. And my
That's
wife loves that.
weird.
My wife loves it, and I love my wife, and I'm glad that she found something she loved. But I must admit, I never understood it.
It's voyeuristic. I mean, I understand voyeurism, but like we used to have taboos against like peeking in people's windows, and now we're opening the window saying, "Hey, look at here!
Well, I mean,
Look at
interesting.
me eating this sandwich. It's great." Do you remember the episode of Family Guy where Peter he gets a theme? He has theme music for wherever he goes in this
Okay.
episode. Like, so he's going on the bus, and the theme music in his head is like as he's traveling. Well, that's what we're like. We all have like our own theme songs, and it's I
It,
don't know.
it's funny, and from an actor's perspective, you do get to live vicariously through the characters you play, right? So,
Yeah, but it doesn't mean anything anymore because we all do it now. Acting has been simultaneously elevated if you happen to be a celebrity, which I'm nowhere near. It's elevated in that way, but it's also really denigrated because everybody's an actor. We're all actors in our daily life.
well, the interesting thing with the eighth graders I work with now, influencers are now bigger than actors in their in to
Oh
them.
yeah. And the fact that we can be influenced is that not something we should admit.
No, and it's kind of funny that there is a I got to do once again special ed teacher, so I do these transition testing for my kids who have IEPs and whatnot, right? And they got to do
Mm-hmm.
these transition assessments where they answer different questions, yes, no, or maybe, describing themselves, all right? And there's one question on one of my transition assessments that makes me angry every time I read it, but I have to. The question is, are you a good follower? And the answer is supposed to be yes, but there's also maybe and or some there's also somewhat and no, but it's the way it's positioned is that it's supposed to be the affirmative. I was like, what kind of question? Like, who wants to be a yes on that? Like at all? But it's there as if that is the goal,
Yeah. Who wants to say, "Are you a good follower?" Yes, I will follow you.
right?
Lead the way.
It's crazy, but that is what influencing is now. That is what the goal is to have follow. They call them followers. Followers that you influence.
but they're not. They're it's not real. They're not really following you. They don't know you.
When you are, because you are someone as an actor, and you also not only from film but also like, so you're in Adversary one person show, you're both the actor, the individual, but also the product on some level.
Yeah,
when
that's right.
when you're online, how did you determine how much time you're spending as the person and how much are you spending as the product that you're promoting?
That's really, really, really hard because you want to be authentic,
Yeah.
but there's some degree of selling that you have to do. Um, yeah, because you don't. I mean, you don't want to whore it out and say, "Hey, it's a great show. You really need to see it." You want to be understated and say, "Hey, I'm doing this new thing, and if you want to check it out, here's the link." But a
Hmm.
lot of times that gets lost because we're only looking for things with explanation points.
Yeah.
So it's really, really hard. What you end up doing is creating a persona that's hopefully pretty much you, but not completely you. I mean, I think everybody should have a private realm that's not online.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I mean, you're just completely exposed, and I don't know if that's good mentally not to have some kind of a private life.
Hmm. When you're thinking about yourself as the promoter of yourself, the promoter version of you, you said you're only like posting maybe once or twice or whatever. Being that you're also dealing with these algorithms, is there a sense that you need to repeat your post over
Yes.
and over again?
Oh, Jeff, yes, yes, the damn algorithms. You are supposed to constantly post the same thing. But
Yeah.
I always feel sorry for the people who are looking at the post
Hmm.
who are going to say, "You just posted about this." And I'm like, I can't do that to them.
Yeah.
So consequently, I don't post enough about stuff, my own stuff that I'm supposed to. You're supposed, and crowdfunding's the worst because you're supposed to just hit it and hit it and hit it and hit it over and over and over again.
Oh, I know. Like I said, on the side, when my side gigs too, for multiple reasons I do it, but on the side gig, I'm a publicist mostly for indie comic books. Partly
Yeah,
because I'm in the industry as in the community as an indie writer myself, so it's good to be part of the community. But also because teaching doesn't pay a lot, and I can make some side money doing it.
right.
But I do so indie comic books is all on Kickstarter. Most of it's on Kickstarter. I only really use Kickstarter for my clients, and I'm posting 3, 4, 5 times a week these people's stuff over and over again to promote to get their stuff out there to sites. Because I know if a site has 1,000 people on it, 20 of them, 30 of them probably saw it. So if you want to get the other 970, you post 5 or 6, 7 more times.
That's
And
right.
the part of thinking, on the one hand, that's my job. The other hand is, yeah, that makes you a pretty one-dimensional annoying person online.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. And we do worry about how we look online, and I guess that's ultimately my worry. Is like, gee, am I going to look like an asshole because I keep posting the same stuff over and over again? But yeah, I need to remember that what you said is true. That if there's 1,000 people, only 20 of them are seeing any one thing at one time
Yeah.
because they're just scrolling. They're just
Right.
scrolling and looking for something that might catch their eye.
And so when you're thinking about that, is it different when you're promoting, let's say, a one-man show of yours versus promoting something you're in, but it's a film that somebody else is making? Does that change how your comfort level is in promoting it?
Yeah, yeah. It's much easier to do something someone else is involved in because you can say, hey, I really respect these people who made this movie. Take a look, would you? Say, have a look and see if you can help out. Yeah, that's a lot easier to do than my own stuff. I hate using the word "my"
Mm.
in social media posts because I think it's assholey. I know it's not, but I
Right,
just
right,
think it is. Like, hey, my show that I'm in with me. It's
right.
like, stop. I have too much of my father in me. My father, I love my father. He's a highly critical person, and I have a lot of that in me, and a lot of it is
Yeah.
self criticism.
So that film that you're in, what was the name of the one that you just mentioned? It's this.
Circus of the Dead.
So when is that one filming?
Circus of the Dead is out. It's been out for several years. It's kind of a cult film. But Circus of the Dead 2 probably will be next year. I know Billy Pond is writing the script and putting it together now, and he's having a contest online where people can talk about like a world within a world, where people can enter this contest to be killed in the movie by the homicidal clowns.
Now, is he gonna fly the people in and pay for their trips to
Yeah, for whoever wins the
Oh,
contest.
damn. That's actually a pretty interesting contest.
I think it is. Yeah, everybody wants to be killed in a movie, and I have to admit, it's fun to die in a movie. It really is, because it's like, the real death is, the big deal, but
Yeah,
playing with it, for some reason, humans really like playing dead. Yeah, I like it too.
that's awesome. So we can have an even deeper conversation when Killcraft and it's kind of in the woods are released. Can we have another conversation to talk about them?
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to. And I really like you because maybe because you work with the kids, you're always thinking from an anthropological angle. And I think that's really, really interesting. A lot of directors think that way too, but they never get to talk about it, you know?
Well, I appreciate it because my memory of the last time we had a conversation was that we got into some really interesting concepts, and I like that we got to do it again. And I'm hoping that when we dive deeper into the films, we can do it a third time.
Yeah, I would like that. This was completely refreshing. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was an absolute pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Good
All
night.
right. Bye.